had to change my lipstick between sessions, so if you notice that it looks different, yes, it is different. 2020. As you'll notice from the graphic, I was busy in 2020. There was a lot getting drawn, in part, well, we know why, right? I think we all know why. It was 2020. Although, granted, I got sick in February and I was out for like 6 weeks because my mom doesn't believe in hospitals. Next thing you knew, everything went into quarantine. My mom decided that was a great time to move us to a whole new city, and I was still trying to figure out my life. Quarantine was rough. I look back on quarantine and I'm like, I wish I had been like some people who were able to be super productive and use that time. Unfortunately, my mental health was a mess, and I was in a very unhealthy home situation, and yeah. I did start a project in 2020. That's when I started actually writing Calidus Chronicles, and you'll kind of start to see that show up in the art as well. So, before I ramble too much, let's get into it. This one, like I said, I'm including the first and last pieces of each year, which is the only reason I'm including this one, because I think it is just okay. It is a piece of art that exists, and that is all the thoughts I allow myself to have on it. This one, so back in 2019, when I was having my whole sword and sorcery barbarian phase, I drew this sketch of Catherine and her love interest, Friedrich. It was specifically inspired by like a publicity shot, I think, from the first Conan movie of him and Valeria. I'm not talking about the fact that Valeria is not a serious love interest in the Conan books. I'm not doing it. Okay. Stay focused. Anyway, I liked the picture, so I decided to sketch it as Catherine and Friedrich, and the sketch came out fine. But in 2020, I decided to, one, take the vibe to more of a fantasy style, fantasy romance specifically, and I colored it. Now, is it great? No. Whatever was going wrong with how I drew faces at the time, definitely on display here with Catherine. But you know what is good about this piece? Is, one, the shading on her leg, the leg that's closest to the camera, so to speak, and the fabric and the way it drapes on the fabric of her skirt and the way it drapes on the bed. I am still so proud of that, and the lighting, and even the way it kind of falls off her hip and flares a little around the blanket. I think I did a fantastic job of that. This is one of those pieces where, like, especially for her face and for his a bit, I would love to go back and fix it up, but I also don't think I could do that one part of it any better. So I wouldn't touch that. I would just do everything around it and make it hopefully much better. I think I could do that. Maybe I could do that. Of course, I could not end the barbarian phase stuff without at least once drawing Runa in it. Now, there was another piece of Runa in that vibe. Universe? I don't know what to call it. There was another piece with her that I tried to do. I think I still have the unfinished canvas. I spent months, if not years, going back to it from time to time to work on it and try to fix it and to finish it. And it never worked. I don't know what's wrong with it. I was just never able to get it done. Which makes me sad, because like I liked the idea of it, and there's aspects of it that I think are really good. I might show it here on the screen. But yeah, no. But I did do this one, which uses the same outfit. The best part in this whole piece, in my opinion, is the hip. And a bunch of the detail in the hip, from like the gold discs that are holding her skirt together, and the sheen on the silk fabric, and especially there's a chain with gold beads and a pearl that's hanging down over her hip, and I think that little bit of this piece came out really well. The other thing I will say is this is the piece where I got the fur right. Like, I think I was specifically looking at tutorials and suggestions on how to draw fur, and that's why I was able to get it here. There was the other Carolyn piece that I'd done in 2019, where you can see I was trying to draw fur blankets around her, but it looked all wrong. This was the one where I got it right. And it took forever. It took so long. But I'm still gonna say it was worth it. I wish I'd put in the effort to draw like a stone wall behind her with bricks like I did on some of the others. Yeah, no, I'm still really proud of this one. Less so this one. The face is bad. And this was the start of the Madeline Valentine's Day pinups, which I did not plan to continue. She's just kind of been my most frequent Valentine pinup over the years, I realized. So this was my Valentine piece for 2020. And I don't know, aside from the face, overall I think it's cute and it came out decently. It's fine. No, the face drags it down, but like it's okay. Okay, so back to Catherine. So what I didn't say before is Catherine, like a few of my characters that my boyfriend and I have developed, were inspired by designs he created in the game For Honor. And Catherine especially was a peacekeeper. And if you know the memes about Peacekeeper and then you see Catherine's character, it kind of makes sense. But we're not going to dwell on that. But I decided, why don't I draw her in the armor from the game? It took forever. I spent so long getting all the details right and making sure I got the structure right and little things to make it look worn and the stitching and all these other details to it and the buckles and even the little wing. Oh god, what's it called? I know what it is. The hilt guard? The cross guard. There it is. The little wing cross guards on her short sword here. I spent so long working on it. The face, like with everything in this era, apparently, is chopped. But everything else looks fantastic. That's something. This one, I was just experimenting with drawing in only grayscale, which turned out quite well. I like how this one came out. I don't see the same issue that I had with the face here. It seems like the proportions of the head are accurate. The dress isn't as detailed as the face. Like, the face is really vivid, and it make the dress, by comparison especially, looks really simple and unfinished, but overall I think this one is good. Okay, so like I said, 2020 was when I really started to lean into fantasy romance design aesthetics, and especially kind of getting back to that Disney princess influence that I hadn't touched in a while. And so we finally got to see Runa in a ball gown. The picture itself is just fine. One of the best things I think is like the sweep of the skirt and the sheen on the fabric of the dress. Other than that, I think it's just fine, and even now the design of the dress itself is kind of simple compared to what I would do now, but it was a step in the right direction. And the face isn't too bad in this one, so I'm gonna say this one definitely came out pretty well. Godric and Madeline! They're just so cute. I love these two. Godric does not dress like this now. You'll see a picture of Godric later, more how he actually dresses in the story, but I was starting to figure things out. This point, I remember we were in quarantine, and I didn't have anything else to do besides draw. So this was one of the pieces that came out of that. The thing I'm really proud of with this is like for the garden wall, I was referencing the windows in like old medieval castles and ruins, and it's a bit warped. Like I didn't get the perspective exactly right, but I do really like how the shading came out. And I think I did a pretty good job of showing the different like planes of the wall, if that makes sense. At least in the window construction, if that makes sense. Not so much the roses, which I just kind of did one or two and then copy pasted them everywhere, regardless of angle or anything like that. But we're gonna ignore the roses because I think the wall came out decently. This one, okay, so this one was just a study of a picture I found on Pinterest, and I wanted to challenge myself, and it came out really well. One of my favorite little details is the way the lines of the straw become warped through the rim of the bottle. Again, I was copying a photo because I was doing a study, so it's not like I came up with that on my own. I just drew what I saw. But I am still really happy with how it came out. I think I did a good job on the shading. I think I did a good job. This one is just a character concept design, and it just came out really well. I think I specifically based her face on my sister. Maybe that helped. But yeah, no, I'm mostly including it to show that, like, not all the faces I drew at this time were bad. Overall, I like how this one came out, so I figured I would include it in the highlight reel. Okay, this was summer of 2020, and I saw a photo of a statue somewhere in Europe that had a woman clinging to a horse and in this pose. And it made me think of Elsa and the Knock from Frozen 2, so I decided to draw this. I do like how it came out, and I do like the lighting overall. I think I could have ramped it up, but overall I think it came out really well. Okay, this one I was starting to figure out Carolyn's design. As I mentioned before, after I drew them for the first time in 2017, Carolyn's design has undergone quite a bit of change and growth, and this one was where I was starting to figure it out and actually pin down what I want her to look like. The art itself is just fine, but like the design was getting there. This one I think is one of my best pieces of 2020. I just like the colors overall. The flowers could have used more detail. You can definitely see how, like, compared to stuff I'd done in the past, I was kind of skimping on details for the background, which actually, that's something I've always done, and that's something I should put a little more effort into. But besides the point right now, this one is special. So despite the fact I've always been an author and an artist, I actually never thought I would be good enough to draw my cover art. Because I was just like, no, cover art needs to be really good, and I'm just not that good. But in 2020, all this character development, and I've talked about this in my Why I Unpublished My Books video, and I'm sure I'll talk about it again. Now, I started writing again in 2019, and that's part of why I was doing so much character design around the sword and sorcery barbarian stuff, because I was thinking about doing a series inspired by that, or with that vibe. I tried writing a few of those stories, nothing really came of it. In 2020 was when I started writing a fantasy romance, and everything just kind of clicked into place. And in the summer of that year, while I was working at Verizon, I wrote the first short story set in the world of what would become Calidus Chronicles. I didn't start posting it until October of that year. I started on October 5th, 2020. And even then, it wasn't until I put out like the third chapter late in October that I finally had cover art. But this was the cover art. I was kind of influenced by old pulp novel covers, and one of the things I noticed with those covers is it's like they were kind of sketchy and messy, and that's why when I was drawing this, I was like, what if I let myself be messy with my line art? What if it's just kind of a cleaned up sketch? That's how this cover was born, and that completely changed my art, and it's made it much easier for me to line stuff now, although it's something I still struggle with mentally more than through ability. But The point is, I drew this in October of 2020, and this feels like one of those landmark things in my art, and I'm still so proud of this. I still have a giant poster of it up on my wall right here. So it's still... Okay, I'm trying not to get too emotional or too personal in these videos about stuff that's gone on, but after everything that's happened in the last couple years and struggling so much with my confidence in my writing and my art, and just myself, looking back at this and remembering how passionate I was, and both appreciating it, like, yeah, of course, there's some things I would fix about it. There's some things that aren't perfect, but it's still good. And I'm still really proud of it. And it kind of takes me back to remembering how much I love this story and how much I love creating this story. And that's something I've kind of lost over the last year or so. And it's really nice to start to feel it again. Also, I've been reading volume 1 again, but that's something I'll talk about later. But yes, so this was the first story cover I did. There are a few more of these covers that I'll show throughout the highlight reel. I won't show a lot of them just because I did a lot, and the quality was kind of mixed. But this one was a really good start, I think. This one I'm just going to include because I wanted to kind of show it. So this was the first time I drew a costume design for Calidus, and the one on the left is the original that I drew in 2020. The one on the right, I think I came back a year or two later, because when I started the story, I was making stuff up as I went along. I had no idea what the aesthetic would be, what the design themes would be, and everything like that. So you can see if you look closely, you can see there's a huge difference in her outfit in the original versus what I ended up doing. I came back because I was like, okay, I know now more what the fashion of this world looks like. And so this is just kind of an example of how much it changed as I was developing it. And that's part of why I'm working on a second edition now, is because I was making things up so much at the beginning and I didn't necessarily know where I was going, and I didn't necessarily have all the world building done. Now I know, and that's part of why I'm doing a second edition, is so that I can do it properly this time. I still... Okay, so like I said, I've been rereading the first volume, and it's good. I'm actually still really happy with it. I just know I can make it better, and I can especially give it a little more direction and fine-tune it to really point in the way I want the story to go. Okay, we're getting back to the art. We're getting back to the art now, I promise. This one is Hrothgar and Carolyn again, and they're just having a cute little date night. And it's not great, but I figured I'd include it because it's cute. And also just because it's Hrothgar and Carolyn again, and why would I resist a chance to show those two off? In contrast, I'm only including this one because it was the last piece I did of the year. And it's not good. And winter of 2020, I started having a bit of a rough time mentally. I was living on my own at that point, and especially since, like I said, it was the winter in northern Idaho. It was really cold, it was really gray, and the air hurt my face when I would stand at the bus stop to go to work. It did start to take a toll on me, and I definitely think I can see that affecting my art, because this one's just not good. And there's nothing else to say about it, is just that it's not good. And again, I only included it because, like I said, rule I set for myself was first piece and the last piece of each year. So we're gonna move past this one pretty quickly, and we're gonna move on to 2021.